Okay, so this is our little front screen here for the Passover feast here. So and you can see various elements that are on the table there. Now it's not uh, exactly the same as what's over here, but anyway, we'll work through it. So, but these are the main things. You see the bread that is sitting in front. There's then four chalices, four cups that are drunk from. Now, in actual fact, there's a total of six cups, but these are the main cups that are talked about in terms of the promises that God makes. The first cup that's not there, well, is actually that sort of greenish looking one that's on the table. That is one that was introduced, into the Feast of Passover to remember other things. And then the sixth cup, which I don't have yet, which I do plan to get, called Elijah's Cup. It will be represented there as well. So, but really, the main focus of items that were utilized at the feast are what's in the picture here, which is the bread, the cups with the wine or grape juice in it, and then there was elements of food that were at that time, and we'll go through those particular bits and pieces later on. So anyway, so Alicia did that for me, so grateful to her for that. But also got myself a new clicker here because the old clicker is, if you go a foot away from the computer, it starts to not work. So this one, sure. There we go. That works. So yeah, and so it's just it's always the way. Okay. The question I want to ask initially here is when is Passover? Okay, because Passover is a Jewish holiday, a Jewish feast. It's their main feast. There's a whole bunch of them. There's you read about them in the Bible. There's Passover. There's the Feast of Unleavened Bread. There's the Feast of First Fruits. There's the a Day of Atonement. There's yes, but the trumpets, which would be the in and around the Day of Atonement. There's Purim, things of that nature. So there's lots of different feasts that go on, but Passover really is the big one. That's the main one, and that is the celebration of when the Jews came out of Egypt. So Jews today still celebrate Passover, and they use it, or they do it using this particular feast that's referred to as the Seder. So there's 15 different steps. I've been saying 14. It's actually 15. So there's a variety of things that are going on. We're going to do two today. Right? So because again, I just want to work through the details of those things. Some of the steps are very, very short. That could be done very, very quickly. But then the likes of the recitation of the deliverance story, that takes a long time. Okay. So, and I've printed off my big 40-odd page book. Of all the what is read and said and who does what and all that kind of thing. So it's quite an involved setup. Anyway, now we live in 2025. Okay, that's our current year, and that is based on the birth of Christ. Now, the actual date for the birth of Christ literally is more like 4 BC, not the year 1 or year 0 or whatever. That was because of the Gregorian calendars that were used to calculate these things weren't as accurate as one would have wanted them to be. But the Jews have their own calendar system, and so their year is 5785. Okay, not 2025. It's 5785. So The Chinese have their own year. Okay. The Muslims have their own year. And so the Muslims base their year off of when Muhammad came on the scene. So theirs is in and around sort of 1600 something or another. So, so anyway, you might ask the question, well, what's 5785? What, because obviously their calendar started at some point. So their reckoning in terms of how they do their calculations, 5785 is 5,785 years since the day of creation. Of creation. Yeah. So, well, what they do is they would go to the genealogies in the Bible and basically, go backwards and because you have in Genesis 9, with or not 9, 5. Yeah, with all the different people like Methuselah and Lamech and all these people that lived hundreds of years, they're able to sort of add all that together and so because there's the Jews were quite fastidious about their length of keeping track of their genealogies and who lived how long and all that sort of stuff. So now the strange thing though about a calendar year within Hebrew reckoning, though, is it's not based entirely on a solar 365-day year. Okay, so that is the time that the Earth takes to go around the sun. That is what is referred to as a solar year. The Jews' system is based on a lunar cycle. I don't know if anybody was up this morning. Did you see the lunar eclipse? Okay, all right, you missed it. Yeah. Anyway, it's not as big of a deal as say a solar eclipse. Okay, a solar eclipse is when the moon goes in front of the sun and everything goes dark, and it's more of a big deal. It's more of a spectacle. Whereas the lunar eclipse is when the moon passes between the sun and or the Earth passes between the moon and the sun, and so you can actually see the shadow of the Earth on the moon. It was about I would say that it started probably about 20 past 5. I saw it. Yeah. So it then covered the entirety of the moon by about 6.
Did you get up especially to see that?
No, that's when I get up. So yeah. So yeah. So anyway. But so what that means though is like last night was a full moon. Okay, so and should be a nice big round bright disc, and then 5:15 this morning you started to see this shadow just go over the face of the moon, and eventually the moon disappeared. Yeah, so but yeah, there'll be pictures online of all this because it does happen every so often. But so the amount of time that it takes the moon to go around the Earth, okay, is 29.5 days. That's how long an orbit takes. So in a lot of ways, for an ancient person to determine time, the moon's quite handy to use, because you look up in the sky and you see the moon. Okay, now and figuring out a day is not terribly hard, but figuring out a solar year, that's a little more difficult. So they base their system on 12 lunar cycles because they knew that fit within a year. But the problem is that you end up with less days based on that, because their months were anywhere between 29 and 30 days per month, whereas our months are 30 to 31. Okay, and that's to cover and compensate for the amount of a solar year. But now, how many believe that the solar year is actually 365 days? Now, most of you say, well, of course it is. That's what the calendars tell us. It's no, it is a solar year is 365 days, 5 hours and 56 minutes long.
I
So-
can do that.
I'm smart. I read things. So see, now you know these things, and you can do neurosurgery or something.
Somebody else.
The Battle of the Boyne was fought on the 1st of July, but celebrated the 12th, because the Pope altered the calendar to take in the 5 hours and 56 minutes. And for years,
Is that a known fact?
that's absolute. The battle was fought on Tuesday, the 1st of July.
No, I'm talking
Oh,
about
yes.
it's 5 hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, so this is why you have a leap year. You know, when you have because basically the 5 hours and 56 minutes. Let's call it 6 hours. Okay, so 6 times 4 is a 24-hour period. So every 4 years, if the year is divisible by 4, you get a leap day on the 29th of February.
Okay.
So
Like the new moon is 29 days, 44 minutes and 2.9. 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes and 2.9 seconds.
okay, well, thank you. So there we go. So there's another piece of information that
Today it's not this, than what day it is.
So just forget it. Just so anyway, but as you see on the screen there, it says the year 5785 actually started on the 2nd of October 2024, but it ends the 22nd of September 2025. So that's not a full year. So that's a bit short. So what happens within a Hebrew calendar system is every so often they'll add an extra month to kind of bring it back into line. So now the reason the start of their year is in October or September, because their next year for 5786 would then start on the 23rd of September 2025. Okay, so and then so it's you can see how you end up getting knock-on effect, so things have to be adjusted around, but the reason it is in and around that period of time is because of when the new moon starts what is called Rosh Hashanah, which is the head of the year, or Rosh Hashanah, depending on how you want to pronounce it. So and when Jesus was talking about you don't know the day or the hour of the Son of Man's return, well, that was an idiom, that was a phrase that was understood back then, where you didn't know exactly when the Rosh Hashanah would take place, because you couldn't see a new moon, and so you can't. A bona fide new moon is sitting, right there next to the sun, and you cannot see it. So you have to wait till you see the little crescent of the moon just a day or two after the new moon, and then you say, oh, that's the new moon. But it's a couple of days out. So the understanding of the Jew was you don't know the day or the hour of when that new moon is. So that was an understood phrase back then, and Jesus didn't say you didn't know the year or the month.
But you see from what you know, which is a lot. Yeah. When do you think, what time of the year was Jesus born, and what time of the year was he crucified?
Well, he would have been crucified in the spring, and then around the time we celebrate Easter. Okay, that is a known fact.
Right.
The time of which he was born probably was not December. Okay, I would say it was, from what I understand, could have been sort of late summer, early autumn. Yeah. So anyway, so right. Okay. So this is just to give you an understanding of what year it is, sort of Jewish wise. Okay. So the Hebrew calendar uses a lunar system, as I indicated there. There's loads of stuff online to go and explain this to you if you're so inclined. Now, the month Nisan starts on a new moon, and that is the first month of the religious calendar of the Jews. The Jews had two starts. They had Rosh Hashanah, which was in September, which was the head of the year, but that was their civil calendar. Their religious calendar, however, started with the month Nisan, which is either in March or April. And the reason they have that is because God told them when they were coming out of Egypt, this shall be the beginning of months to you. So as soon as Passover was instituted, God says this is when things start. So their religious calendar actually starts with this month called Nisan, which is in and around the March-April time. Now, so then the question is when does that actually start? Well, it starts on a new moon, because every month started on a new moon. So and then in the middle of the month, which was the 14th of the month, was your full moon. All right. Now, Passover starts on the 14th of Nisan. So I should have had two S's in those two month names there. So what that says is that Jesus was then crucified on Passover, okay, because that's clear in terms of when he was crucified. So that was the 14th of the month of Nisan on a full moon. So when they went to the Garden of Gethsemane, it was a full moon. So, and it was pretty bright, I would imagine. For, those of you that have been out in the countryside with no city lights and all that kind of stuff, see when you're out there with a full moon, I mean, it is bright. So, I remember being in camp years ago, and there was a full moon, and it was lit up over the lake, and you could see all the mountains and the clouds, and you could see everything, and you could actually read by it. I mean, it was so bright that I could actually read a book by moonlight. So, here in town and cities and all that kind of stuff, the moonlight gets kind of washed out because of streetlights and so on. So the Passover starts basically in the middle of the month. Now, that particular day of the week could be different. Okay, so it's not, if you remember when we talked about the actual death of Christ, what we concluded was it isn't on Friday, okay? It was on Thursday. So that's because if Jesus was going to be dead in the grave 3 days, 3 nights, and you say, he died on Friday, well, you got Friday night, Saturday night, and well, it doesn't work. So when you look at it from a Jewish point of view and perspective, and we can, you can go back to that study, but basically, what takes place is in order to get the 3 days, 3 nights in their entirety, Jesus had to have died on Thursday. Okay, so therefore, the 14th of Nisan would have been started on Wednesday night, because that's when they would have had Passover. Okay, so and that was a full moon. So if you go back then, as astronomical, astronomers can do, they can actually go back and figure that out, and so in terms of when that actually took place. So that was probably, in and around sort of, they reckon between 30 and 32 AD. Okay. So now the Passover for 2025 is on Saturday, the 12th of April. Okay. And it starts just before sundown, and it runs, the whole Passover feast runs to Sunday, the 20th of April, just after sundown. Now, if you notice, the 20th of April this year is what? Easter Sunday. Okay. Now, the only reason that it happens to start on a Saturday is because the full moon is on the 12th of April. So, because Passover always starts on the full moon. So 12th of April is the full moon. Okay, so I'm running ahead of myself a little bit. Now, Easter this year is the 20th of April, 2025. Now, the question sometimes I get asked is, why is Easter always on a different Sunday. Unlike Christmas, Christmas is always the 25th of December. So, and really all that was based on a lot of sort of pagan stuff, really. So, but Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. Okay, and the spring equinox is the first day of spring, which is the 21st of March. Now, you'll hear people say in the news that the first day of spring is the 1st of March, but that might be the first day of spring in terms of meteorological stuff, but in terms of how the earth is actually balanced, the first day of spring, which is where the sun shines directly over the equator of the earth. Okay, so when you have a spring equinox or an autumnal equinox, which is on the 23rd of September, that is when the sun shines directly over the equator.
It's not to call the longest day.
No, this is not the longest day. The longest day would be June 21st, which is the first day of summer. But what's it called, astronaut? No,
the sun reaches the Tropic of Cancer.
Yeah, so
The furthest it goes.
yeah, so if you look at a globe, okay, if you have a globe at home and you see what is called the Tropic of Cancer, that is 23.5 degrees above the equator latitude, and that the sun, in terms of its overhead, actually does get up to that point. But you see, when we look at the sun in the sky, because we're so far north, the sun is always kind of out there. It's never never gets to be straight above you. So it'll be kind of out that direction. So now for people who live in the southern hemisphere, say Australia and all that kind of stuff, the sun during their summertime would be very, very, during their winter would be very north. So they're seeing the sun in the north as opposed to the south. So, okay, so right, and then in the wintertime, the longest or the shortest day of the year is the 21st of December, and that's when the sun goes all the way down to the Tropic of Capricorn, which is 23.5 degrees south of the equator. And so that's when and that's why your globe is tilted. Okay, it's tilted by 23.5 degrees, and that's how it goes around the sun. As it goes around, tilted, and it spins like this. So that's why you get seasons. So yeah, the Big Bang was something else, So, but so anyway, so if anybody ever asks you when Easter is, you can say Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the first day of spring.
And then just look at the reaction.
Yeah. Just so that's why it's so. But it always ends up being kind of late March or later on in April. So now you might ask the question, okay, well, Saturday, the 12th of April is the full moon. Why is the next Sunday? Why is it not the next day? Why is not the 13th then? Again, that's because of how Jewish calendaring works, because days on the Jewish calendar run from sundown to sundown. So that day actually, their Sabbath runs into the next into Sunday. So it won't be that. So it has to be then the following Sunday.
There's something else, is there not, that the Pope who fixed Easter Sunday made sure it could never fall properly on the Jewish Passover?
That's right.
Yeah, that's I guess possible there. So
yeah, I can't remember the full date, but I remember there was something about that.
Yeah.
Reading something.
Yeah. So yes. Anyway, so so this is all to say when Passover is this year and all that kind of stuff. So I haven't even gotten to that table yet. Okay. Right. So this is just a chart just to kind of demonstrate what certain things are here. So you can see the first of Nisan there is the first day of that month. And then the 14th is would be then the start of the Passover. So the Feast of Unleavened Bread then covers the next number of days after that. First fruits is on the 17th, which is when Jesus rose again. Okay, because he was the first fruit out of death. 49 days, which was referred to as the counting of the Omer, that takes you then up to the Feast of Pentecost. So which was 49 days after, so that was 49 days after the feast, after first fruits, so after the resurrection, because Jesus rose from the dead and was on the earth for 40 days after he, and then Pentecost was then 10 days after that. This was taken by Hebrew for Christians website by Rob Parsons, which I find an excellent site. Okay, now the Seder plate, okay, which is eventually what we're going to have there in the middle, was full of a variety of different things. Now now you can get paper plates with all this on it, and you can get paper cups, and you can get paper napkins for your Passover. But in order to buy one of those plates, that's more money than I care to spend. So we'll not get that. So at least we have a picture of it. But what they would have is they had various sorts of portions on it, and we'll get into what all those things mean. There's the shank bone, there's the bitter herbs, there's the marasheth, which was a mixture of apples and different sorts of fruits mixed together. It was to represent the hard work of the Israelites when they were putting bricks together. So it was a reminder of the bricks. There was the parsley, there was the horseradish, and there was an egg. So all those things all represent different things. So there you can sort of see more what those particular items are, and so you can see in the upper corner there the matzah, and I'll just go and grab a piece of matzah here. This is what I was hoping to bring to the breaking of bread. Was this thing here. So yeah, so it's like a big cracker. Okay, so this is unleavened bread. Okay, it is flat. Okay, and it has lots of little holes in it in order to sort of keep it from puffing up, and it's striped in a sense.
You get that?
I bought it online, and there's a nice, and this is the stuff that we actually use in our church back home. It's made by a company called Manischewitz, and it's matzah. Okay, so that's genuine, the world's original ancient cracker. So anyway, so yes, yeah. So anyway. No. So what we would have done, so is in our breaking of bread, there would have been about two pieces of this on a plate, and the man that would give thanks for the bread would go up and then take this, and he would take his knuckles and basically break it and just crunch it up into little bits. And then that would be passed around. People would then, but sometimes they would hold the matzah up, and they would say, the holes, represent, Christ being pierced for us, and it's striped because by his stripes we are healed, and he has no sin in him, because there's no leaven in the bread. So there's a lot of symbolism there for that particular thing. So, but we'll talk more about that when we get there. So that's what I had to run up to the house to go and get, because I left it up there. So anyway, bad me. So, right. Okay, so the first thing that is done, the first step of this Passover feast is what is called nerot. Okay, and this is the lighting of the candles. Okay. Yes, I'll let you know. So yeah, so anyway,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, so yeah, and I am gonna swing the camera around to so you so
You're a big minute.
so so anyway, but what this is about is it is sanctifying the time. Okay, so by having these candles lit. So and a woman of the house, okay, whoever is hosting this particular Seder feast, she would be the one that lights the candles, and they are lit 18 minutes before sundown, at least 18 minutes before sundown. It doesn't have to be exactly 18 minutes, but it has to be at least 18 minutes. So as to why, that I'm not sure about. But anyway, so there you go.
Here we go.
So,
But I don't like the inside, so.
Now you're
So-
on the international.
we'll have to get you swung around here. Hang on. So, all right, there we go. Where's Siobhan? There we go.
Meghan Markle, give a look at the.
You could have these. Oh.
Which is confused.
Right. Now,
Siobhan, you look lovely up in that picture.
Stop, I'm not even looking.
And this is coming out on the internet
No, it's
by
not.
millions who watch this. You get an Oscar.
all right, there we go. So now, once you get these lit, you'll have to stand there for a second because you'll have to do a certain procedure.
Happy birthday.
That would be nice.
There we go. All right, now, so, and what the lady of the house then does is she waves her hand over the flame 3 times. So there we go. 1, 2, 3. Very good. You may sit down. All right, thank you. Huh? I think it has to do with the things about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and so yeah. So, but it is a sanctifying exercise. So it's bringing light into the. I'm just going to use my torch here as my thing to make my thing go. So now, what is then recited? Now we won't get you to recite this. Okay, so right, all right. So you've done your bit. Is this particular prayer, okay, which is, "Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with your commandments and has commanded to kindle light of the holiday." So that's what the lady of the house would do. So it's interesting that the Seder feast is initiated by a lady. So because and what that demonstrates is that God is very, very interested in everybody and in equality, really. So now we have different roles, but spiritually we're all in the same boat. So which I think is a wonderful thing to think about. So now, normally those particular candles would stay lit, throughout the entirety of the feast process. But the book didn't say how many candles. I have 7 up there, just because I thought, well, 7 that's a nice godly number. So anyway, so yeah. So anyway. So now there is readings about the light. So I will read these things to you.
Somebody reads.
So somebody reads these things about the light. So And the candles as well wouldn't be like little tea lights. They would be like, long, tall, candles, So let's see, again, getting your hands on, so anyway. So, but there was 3 readers, and what they would do. Now, this particular thing here is more Christian based. Okay. So it's more looking at the Seder from how Jesus fulfills this. But the first reader would have said, since Yeshua, meaning Jesus, was born of a woman born under the Torah, the law, it is fitting that a woman begin the Seder and bring light to the table. And then the next reader would say, as we look upon the candles, may we remember that Yeshua is the light of the world. So, and then the third reader would say, blessed are you, O Lord, who calls us out of darkness into his marvelous light. And then this is the time when then the leader of the Seder feast, that would be then the man of the house, he would then say this. He says, since the Passover centers on the person and work of Yeshua, as say Hashak, which is the Passover Lamb of God, it is fitting to begin the Seder with an acknowledgement of his glory and presence. Let us therefore begin our Seder with a blessing that recognizes him as the source of all light and truth for our lives. And then what he would do is then lead everybody in a prayer. So there was these readings about the light. So it's all focusing, then upon Jesus being the light of the world. Now, the Jews, obviously, who are celebrating this as Orthodox Jews, they don't buy that. Okay, so they don't, but they are looking to the Messiah who would come and bring light. They just haven't found him yet. Okay, so
And they'd be home. They wouldn't go to church to do this. This would
oh
be
no,
on their home.
this would be done in the home. Yeah.
The Orthodox.
Mhm. I would say even sort of non-practicing Jews would a lot of them would celebrate Passover, because Passover is a big deal. Yeah. The more Orthodox Jews would wear the yarmulke, which is a little skull cap. Well, yeah. Well, they're the real serious people. Yeah. So anyway.
No.
So. There's little curly hair. Yeah. So anyway, so everybody then recites this now, and we can do this. So we can say this together, okay? So all right. So we're Mr. McGuire. So we're going to say this all together here. So blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with your commandments and has commanded us to be a light to the nations, and who gave us Yeshua, our Messiah, the Passover Lamb. Okay, so now, again, for the Orthodox Jew, they would then be projecting this about the Messiah that is to come. Yeah, so anyway, but it's interesting, all the blessings and prayers that are said all start off with, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe. Now, all this would generally be said in Hebrew. Okay, so I'm not going to go and tackle that with you. That is in here. It is in Hebrew. It's anglicized so that you can pronounce it if you wish. But anyway, then it is given in an English translation. So we're talking about the English because we understand English, So anyway, so that's the lighting of the candles. Absolutely, yes. So that it is desperately important to do that. That Lord, you're the one, you're blessed, you're the Lord, you're our God, you are the King of the universe. Okay. So
you believe there's a God.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Messiah for the religious Jew of today hasn't come yet. Yeah.
You remember the pastor speaking a few Sunday nights ago? This people worship me with their mouth, but their hearts are far from me.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
With their mouths, but their hearts from, yeah. So, okay. So this particular step continues, but it does take a little bit of uh, a turn. And so there is then a thanking God for appointed times. And what is then everybody recites this. Well, actually, the leader would say this before everybody talks here. Says the Lord established the Mihodim, or the appointed times, in order to reveal prophetic truth regarding his great plan of salvation given through the Messiah. Let us now thank him for the divine calendar that he has revealed in Scripture. So then the people would then say, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has given us the holidays, customs, and seasons of happiness for the glory of the Lord Yeshua, the Messiah, the light of the world." Okay. So now, what is then done now is there is what is referred to as the partaking of Miriam's cup. Okay, so if you see in the table there is a kind of a green cup that's in the back, or greenish goblet. Okay, so again, I checked into the pricing of getting bona fide looking Passover cups and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to get Elijah's cup. That's going to cost a taste of money, but because I want to have something that's at least authentic looking. So, but we'll use that cup in the back. So that is the first cup. It's not part of the four. It's not part of the group of four cups, but this is the cup that was brought in initially, called Miriam's cup. So now so there's a picture of what Miriam's cup would look like. All right. So now that does in Hebrew say Miriam on it. Okay. And does anybody know who Miriam is? Moses' sister. Okay. So now Moses' sister, very, very important person. Okay. Zipporah. Yeah. So, so if we remember from the story about the Exodus in terms of when baby Moses was born and all that kind of stuff, the Pharaoh wanted to kill all the male children. Okay, so they hid Moses, and so what Moses' mom decided to do was put him in a basket, seal it with pitch, and ferret down the Nile River. But what Miriam did is she basically guided the basket and made sure that Pharaoh's daughter found it.
She was a handmaiden there.
Yeah. So then Pharaoh's daughter says, "Look at this! It came from the gods." So, there's this baby, and well, who's going to take care of this baby? So then Miriam, goes and runs up to Pharaoh's daughter and says, "I know somebody who can take care of the kid for you." So and then she runs back and gets Moses' mom. God had all this sorted out in terms of having the child be nursed and everything, because obviously the Pharaoh's daughter couldn't nurse the child because she ain't the mom. Okay, so what they did back then is they did hire what was referred to as wet nurses. Okay, so well, what better nurse can you have than your own mother? So anyway, so what's stated here is our Passover Seder includes a special goblet called Miriam's cup to honor the role of women in Jewish tradition and history. Miriam, of course, was Moses' sister who helped the Jewish people escape from Egypt during the Exodus, and Yeshua's mother was likewise named Miriam, i.e. Mary. Okay, so now that the Passover candles have been lit, let us take a moment to partake of the cup of Miriam at the Seder, and we need a woman volunteer who will fill the special cup with water before we drink, and then we recite a prayer after that. So would some lady like to come up and put a taste of water in the little green cup. All right, there we go. Good, Wendy. So all you need to do is kind of fill it up halfway there. Right. So that's just that back glass. Yep, okay, that's fine. Probably I missed it, but that's right. Okay, thank you. That's grand. This poor camera's like all over the place. Okay, well, we'll have to work on our production techniques next time. But anyway, so what this so a woman volunteered, so it wasn't the woman of the house necessarily, like Siobhan, to fill the special cup with water. So, and then everybody would recite, this is the cup of Miriam, the cup of the living waters, the reminder of our exodus from Egypt. Okay, so that's what everybody would then say. So there's a lot of recitation, a lot of repeat after me sort of stuff. So now, but the leader would say again in the Christian ideals about this particular feast, he says a midrash, meaning a Jewish teaching, teaches that a miraculous rock, a well of living water, accompanied the Jews throughout their journey in the desert that provided them with fresh water. And according to later tradition, this well was given in honor of Moses' sister Miriam, to honor her devotion to the Jewish people. Both Miriam and the rock, the well of living water, were spiritual oases in the desert, sources of life and healing. So now, there would then be somebody who would read this particular verse. Now, this is somebody would read this. So basically, moreover, brethren, and they're quoting from 1 Corinthians 10, 1-4. And this is referenced back to Moses' time. Moreover, brethren, I do not want you to be unaware that all our fathers were under the cloud, all passed through the sea, all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they all drank from that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. So, so this whole thing about the pouring of water, again, is demonstrating that God is providing. Water is essential. So so once this is read, this particular verse, then the leader of the Seder would say, in other words, Yeshua is the source of life for the Jews as they wandered in the desert of Sinai. He was the living waters. When just as he is today, the cup of Miriam then commemorates his presence as the Jews trek their way to the promised land. So, and then another reader would then say, come, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters. And then another reader after that would say, let the one who believes in me drink, just as the scripture says, from within him will flow rivers of living waters. So, so that is then the first step. Okay, so it's this lighting of candles, which talks about light, obviously, and then there is the pouring of the water into Miriam's cup, demonstrating that God then provides life in water, and all that is fulfilled in the Lord Jesus Christ, because he's the light of the world and he is the everlasting fountain of life. So now the next thing here is the leader of the Seder would then shout Kaddish. And so that is the, or Kaddish, depending on the spellings of these things kind of differ from thing to thing. But this is where the first cup is. So hence one of those 4 cups that are sitting up there. So Exodus 6:6-8 says this, and again, this would be read during this time. It says, therefore say to the children of Israel, I am the Lord. I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. I will rescue you from their bondage. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. I will take you as my people. I will be your God. And then you shall know that I am the Lord, your God, who brings you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. I will bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you as an heritage. I am the Lord. So the cups of Passover, the four main cups, are all structured around these promises. Now, there are 7 times where God says, I will, I am, or something of that nature. Now, it is interesting that this particular passage is bracketed it acts like a bookends. I am the Lord. So at the beginning of his statement, therefore say to the children of Israel, I am the Lord. Okay. And right at the end, what does it say? I am the Lord. Okay. So it is the Lord who does these things. So this is not the people doing these things. This is the promises of God doing these things for the people of God. Now, the cups, and those are what some of the more traditional looking cups look like. So they're quite a bit different than the glass ones we have. But there are these promises, okay? And so the first cup was called the cup of sanctification. And that is going back to that line in Exodus where it says, I will bring you out from Egypt. Okay, so it's the idea of being set apart. All right, being made holy. We're bringing you out from Egypt because your soul, your being, your whole self needs to be separated out from that place. Okay, so God didn't say, "Oh, be a good witness," or be do your best down in Egypt. They had to be brought out of Egypt. So the cup of sanctification was reflecting back on, I will bring you out. And then there was the cup of deliverance, which was, I will deliver you from bondage. Okay, so you had to come out of the place, but it was a slightly different nuance to be delivered from the bondage of that thing. So because sometimes we could leave a place, but we're not delivered from the bondage. So as they say, wherever you are, you're there. So now, in looking at these particular cups, all of these cups would have been partaken from in the Last Supper, okay? Because when Jesus was doing this with his disciples, what was he celebrating? He was celebrating the Passover. So all these cups would have been drunk from. Now, not all these cups are discussed in the institution of the Lord's Supper. The cup of deliverance happens to be mentioned in the Gospel of Luke, and that's the only time it's mentioned. The cup of sanctification isn't mentioned at all. All right, but the main cup that is mentioned, as this is the New Testament in my blood, that's this one, which is the cup of redemption. I will redeem you with my power, with an outstretched arm. So in other words, God is promising, I will bring you out, I will deliver you, I will buy you. Okay, I will purchase you out of this. Okay, because the thing that God wants to do with all of our lives is he realizes that somebody has to pay a price. So, and that's what redemption is all about. It says in Ephesians chapter 1, we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins according to the riches of his grace. So the riches of God's grace is the amount of great wealth and power, as it were, that God is then applying to you and saying, I will purchase you out of the slave market of sin. And then because that price is paid, I will then set you free. So So this third cup is the main cup that we celebrate and the breaking of bread, or the Lord's table. Now, there's the fourth cup, which is, and incidentally, we're going to, go as these cups are drunk from throughout this process. We'll look at each of them in more detail. But the last cup is the cup of restoration, which is, I will take you as my people. So I'm going to then bring you, take you as mine, and we're then going to go into the land. Okay, so there's a purchase, a possession there, but that's about the. So some people refer to this as either the cup of restoration or the cup of protection. Okay. So God, just going back to the cup of sanctification, God has set us apart as His special people. And now, what is then read at this particular stage is Genesis 1:31 through to chapter 2 and verse 3. It says, then God saw everything that He had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day, and thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished. And on the seventh day, God ended His work which He had done, and He rested on the seventh day from all His work which He had done. And then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it He rested from all His work which God had created and made. So let's get my book here. All the right stuff. So then at this particular stage, the cup would be poured. Now this would be done by the leader of the man of the house. So I will go ahead and do that. So anyway, sorry, camera, you won't see me. So that would then be poured into that cup there. But we do not drink it yet. Okay, so everybody drinks it, but not yet. Yeah, it's handed around. Yeah. So now different Seder feasts do it different. Sometimes they may not have actually 4 cups. They may have just 1 cup, but you drink 4 times. So, but I would say most of them would have 4 separate cups. It's a little easier. So what they would then say, and this the Seder leader would then say what's on the screen there. Blessed are you, O Lord, our God, King of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. Okay, so that because that is the fruit of the vine. And then the next thing that is said is, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctified us with His commandments and hoped for us, and with love and intent invested us with His sacred Sabbath as a memorial to the deed of creation. It is the first among the holy festivals commemorating the Exodus from Egypt. For you chose us and sanctified us out of all the nations, and with love and intent you invested us with your holy Sabbath. Blessed are you, O Lord, sanctifier of the Sabbath. Now, the Passover was a special Sabbath. Okay, the kind of stock standard Sabbath that occurred every 7 days was Saturday. Okay, that was the 7th day of the week, and as we saw in that previous scripture from Genesis, God hallowed the 7th day because that was the day He rested. Okay, now, but the Passover didn't always fall on a Saturday, because it fell on the full moon. But that was a special Sabbath. So when you read the scriptures closely about when Christ died, they didn't want to keep Him on the cross during the Sabbath. So that's why He was taken down from the cross. The Sabbath happened to be the Friday. Okay, so He had to be taken down then from Thursday. before the evening pit. Okay. Right. So, and then another prayer would be said, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who chose us from all the nations and elevated us above all tongues and sanctified us with his commandments. And you gave us, Lord our God, with love, Sabbaths for the rest, and for festivals for happiness, holidays and times of joy. This day of the festival of matzos, which basically is the bread, the time of our freedom, a holy convocation, a remembrance from the exodus of Egypt, because you chose us and sanctified us from all the nations, and your holy festivals in happiness and in joy you gave us as a heritage. Blessed are you, God, who sanctifies the Sabbath, the Sabbath, and Israel, and the holiday seasons." And then everybody would say amen. So, and then at this particular point, so we have all these different prayers that are said, and then there is the drinking of the cup, and it happens after this particular blessing, which is called, I'm not even going to seek to pronounce that. Okay. Yeah, anyway. So what they would say is, "Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has kept us alive and sustained us and brought us to this season. Amen." And then everybody would, take the cup and they would drink from it at this particular point. So it had to be done after this particular blessing. So that's what we would do, is we would drink from the sanctification cup. And this is again based on this verse out of Exodus, which is, "I am the Lord; I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians." So the Jews were very, very focused. This was if you remember where you come from. As a man said to me one time, when you look back at the past, you glance, but you don't stare. So it's good to look back at the past and do this remembrance, but you also remember that God is taking you somewhere, and he's taking you forward. So, but it is good to say, that's where I was, and I'm glad I'm not there anymore. So then, just at the very end of this particular section, there is the blessing of the children. And so this is where the kids start to get involved. And in the next step, which we'll look at next week, which is the washing of the hands, it's actually a child who goes around with a pitcher of water and goes around and washes everybody's hands. So, but it's at this particular point, there is a blessing for the children. And so the children come to the adults. The adults would then place their hands upon their head and pronounce a blessing on them. And so for the son, they would say, "May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." Now that's a reflection back to when Jacob blessed Joseph's two sons. Okay, so those, if you talk about the 12 sons of Joseph, in terms of the inheritance and all that kind of stuff, Joseph got a double portion because it was about his two sons. Levi was the one that was then kind of left out of that count because his inheritance was God himself. So they didn't get land. The Levites didn't get land. But to the daughters, they would say, "May God make you like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah." So, obviously matriarchs from the past, Sarah would have been Abraham's wife, Rebecca would have been Isaac's wife, and then Rachel and Leah were the wives of Jacob. Now there was Bilhah and Zilpah, but they were concubines. So they had kids too via Jacob, but they weren't wives. So, Leah would have had Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Rachel would have had Joseph and Benjamin. So the other sons were via Bilhah and Zilpah. Now Leah did have two other children after that, so I can't mind who they. Yeah, then there was Dinah, there was the daughter. So but anyway, so I think the reason they're reflecting upon these women really was the blessing of God really and truly came through their sons. So anyway, so that is the first two steps out of 15. So now, like I say, some of these steps are quite short. When they get to the part where they read about the whole story about the past and all that kind of stuff, that is quite a protracted sort of exercise. So that'll probably take up a Friday. So, but
What do the Jews, if Jews die now and have done, where do they think they're going? If they're still waiting on the Messiah, do they think they're going to heaven?
well, see, heaven is not really the afterlife in that sense that we understand. Really isn't on the minds of the afterlife is not a big thing in their minds.
They don't think about that.
They don't think about it. It's not that they reject it, because it's more about the land. It's more about the inheritance. So this is why there's so much tension in Israel today, and that's why the Arabs want to get rid of the Jews and so on. It's because the land is the promise. The land is the inheritance.
So they have no thought for what will happen then whenever they pass away.
Not particularly. It's because that is not something that is emphasized in the Old Testament. But what Jesus was bringing out was really your soul goes on, and there is a bigger kingdom than just what's here in the earth.
They don't see that.
So they don't see it that way.
Something that I can't understand, all this Gaza and everything that's going on now. I don't understand a bit of that, but I know that we have to. I've always heard that we have to pray for Israel and that God will, and not say anything bad about Israel because that's God's chosen people and God's chosen land.
It is, yes, and that's what the Bible instructs us to do: pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And that's what we need to pray for. Is peace.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is horrendous what people are doing to each other. And in the name of religion and so on. So and you have a lot of Palestinian sort of civilians that have gotten completely and utterly caught up in all this. And I think pretty much at the behest of their captors, Hamas. So because they're animals, they're nasty people. They're evil folk. So and that's why Israel is so bent against them. Now, the Palestinians is just a rejig of Philistines.
Yeah.
So it is land that Israel should have captured 3,000 years ago, but didn't. And so now it's still in their back pocket. It's still causing them a lot of problems. Now, how you manage that so that you're equitable and fair, because the Bible talks a lot about the foreigner who lives among you. So there's a lot of scripture in there about non-Jewish people living among Jewish people. So and being fair to them. So right now you don't see an awful lot of fairness. So so it is a hard one.
I don't understand it, but I just know that you have to pray for Israel.
Yeah.
Well, if you study history, there is no nation on earth dispersed 2,000 years ago whoever came back.
Yeah.
Not only that, if you study history, every nation has ever turned against the Jews
Yeah,
has ended in total disaster.
yeah.
The British Empire collapsed in a couple of years because they turned against Israel.
Well,
1948.
Ian tells
They
me
went
that
from a
everybody has, that's what, you know, that's prophecy, because everybody has to turn against Israel. Isn't that right? Before the Lord comes back.
like you read in Isaiah, can a nation be born in a day? Israel was born in a day.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah, and like you say, it was the only,
What? The king of the West? Yes.
Not already?
Yes.
Yeah.
Britain, the UK is a very anti-Semitic country at the moment.
okay.
And Ireland is one of the most anti-Semitic countries in the world.
And what about America?
America is funny. There is an argument that those tall fair-haired strangers beyond the Great River, but that's the only reference I have ever found to America.
Oh,
A
okay.
lot of people will say when the rapture comes, there'll be so many Americans taken home.
I don't know. I think America is going to lose influential ground quite substantially. You know, now Trump is trying to make America great again and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of American Christians are kind of rallying behind that whole sentiment. You know, so but I don't know where that's going to go. I'm glad I live here.
But is he an Egypt or is he God's Egypt?
Yes,
Is he actually been used by
Oh,
God?
yeah, so
You know, you've got to sort of live a wee bit scratched below the surface. I mean, Hitler was an idiot too, but was Hitler used by God?
Was Pharaoh used by God?
yeah, yes.
And you get after the Second World War, you get this tremendous calling of the Jews from all over the world come home, and nobody could stop them.